Back to Miller. Oh, my goodness.
Herbert.
Sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Upfront podcast here on Pick Swap Media. This is Ryan Coyle, back today with another episode as part of our college football preview series, where we'll be going through a bunch of the top teams and kind of giving you a 15-minute individualized episode on the team and kind of what happened with them last year and what to expect from them this season. And today's episode is a team that I'm really excited to get into, and I think I'm a little more high on than the general public, and that's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They come in the AP poll for week 0 at number 13. They're coming off their first season under head coach Marcus Freeman back in 2022, where Marcus Freeman, first-year head coach, 9-4 record, got off to a slow start, 0-2. But this is a team that really picked it up, I think, over the second half of the season and played some really good football. Like I said, they lost their first 2 games of the year at Ohio State. Certainly not a cupcake there. That was a game they were expected to lose. But then they lost at home to Marshall. And right after that, there began to be some extreme doubt whether Marcus Freeman was the right guy to be Notre Dame's head coach. Only 2 games into his tenure, but you lose a home game to Marshall, who is a much lesser opponent at such a high expectation place like Notre Dame. You're going to start to hear from the crowd a little bit. So he did put it together, I think, though, over the second half of the season. They did have a loss to Stanford, who was terrible, but that's like kind of a rivalry game as well. So you can never really write that one off as an easy win. And then they also had an understandable loss to USC, who was certainly an up and down season, but I really did like the improvement we saw because when this team played well, they were, a top 4, top 5 team in the country, I think, at their best last year. We didn't see that every week as we see a 9-4 record, but I think the progress that they showed and just getting a new head coach in there, it's going to take time to build that up. I mean, Lincoln Riley last year at USC, he was in a bit of a different scenario because he had Caleb Williams transfer with him from Oklahoma. But I think the Irish last year proved that they can, when they're at their best, be one of the top teams again in college football. They did beat the 2 top teams in the ACC last year in UNC and Clemson. And I think this year they're really ready to hit the ground running with the foundation from last year set in stone. And let's kind of move forward and have a really good 2023. Really tough schedule, but we'll get into all that in this episode. When you look at last year's roster, though, and their key losses, they only had 3 selections in the NFL draft. Tight end Michael Mayer, he was probably their best offensive player last year. He's gone now with the Raiders. Edge rusher Isaiah Foskey, I was a big fan of him. He was another second-round pick in the draft. I believe he went to the Saints, but he was kind of the heart and soul of that defense, the tone setter up front. And then offensive lineman Jared Patterson. So this is a team that doesn't depart much from a team that went 9-4 and over their last 10 games of the season, 11 games of the season, they went 9-2. So this is a team, as we touched on, a lot of growth and got better, and now they're returning a lot this year. Notre Dame this season returns 15 of their 22 starters from last year, and their starting quarterback last year, Tyler Buckner, he transferred to Alabama, but they upgraded at that spot by bringing in Wake Forest transfer quarterback Sam Hartman. So I think really they gained, that was an improvement there at the quarterback spot. So I wouldn't really even consider that a loss at the quarterback. So really you could say like 16 of 22 starters are coming back for this team. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees was a big loss as well. He went to Alabama. He brought Tyler Buckner with him. And Tommy Rees probably going to be a head coach sooner than later. So this is a guy that was the foundation of the offense, and that was his baby. Marcus Freeman, he was all in on the defense. So we're going to see some changes on the offensive side of the ball this year, I think, with Notre Dame, with Sam Hartman coming in, and they brought in former West Virginia offensive coordinator to be their play caller this year. So we'll certainly see some different things, but I really like the continuity coming back. 15 of the 22 starters, and like I said, the one lost starter was the quarterback, but they upgraded that spot. So when you look at the offense, the big headliner, one of the biggest transfers in college football this past offseason was Sam Hartman. He has 12,967 career passing yards and 110 career touchdown passes to his name during his time at Wake Forest. Now he's transferring into Notre Dame for his 6th and final year of college football. He comes in with top 20 numbers in passing touchdowns and passing yards in college football history. And I think his leadership, maturity, and just overall experience should be well received for a Notre Dame team that I am expecting to make some noise this year. Like I said, I'm a little bit higher on this team than most. He's known for his downfield passing and his big playability. He was always airing that ball out at Wake Forest. This was a team at Wake Forest that could put up 40, 50 points on any given week. So I'm expecting big things from Sam Hartman this year and really to elevate this Notre Dame offense. And not only does the impact of Hartman being in the lineup help the passing game, but it's going to allow for less men in the box and guys near the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to help the rushing game as well and really open up some rushing lanes for some of these running backs. Their top back this year is going to be Aldrick Esme. He ran for 920 yards and 11 touchdowns last year, so he should be in position, I think, another year under his belt to be a 1,000-yard rusher this year. And he's got one of the better and more experienced offensive lines in the country in front of him with Joe Alt, the left tackle. He's going to be probably a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick this year. So the hesitancy of this team, I think, on my side, the pessimism, I guess you could say more so, would be the receivers. This is when you bring in a new quarterback, and they did bring in a lot of new guys at the receiver spot. The chemistry might not all be there, and it's not the most overly talented group. But at the same time, Sam Hartman never really dealt with the greatest receivers during his time at Wake Forest either. So he was really able to elevate the play of those around him. When you look at some of the top pass catchers this year for Notre Dame, it's expected to be Jaden Thomas, Tobias Merriweather, and Deion Colsey. Those are the three guys that look like they're ready to lead the team in snaps. Michael Meyer at tight end from last year is a huge loss because he was really the focal point of the offense last year. But I'm banking on Hartman's experience and big playability to kind of shake things up from last year's offense and the up and down play that they had. And then the offensive line, headlined by a top 5, top 10 potential pick in Joe Alt, should be really good this year and give him a lot of time to throw and then open up some more rushing lanes as well. I think this is an offense that's going to be able to put up points every week. Maybe out of the gate, they're a little slow as they're kind of getting used to the new quarterback and some new personnel in there. But I do think by season's end, this could be one of the better offenses in the country due to Sam Hartman's overall ability. Then when you go to the defense, as we touched on, it's Marcus Freeman's baby. That's his unit. You can point out several ups and downs from last year. They would have a really great performance, and then they would follow it up by letting up 30 or 40 points in the next week or the week after that. This was a defense that was a bit inconsistent last year, but you can point to a lot of flaws. But Notre Dame last year in week 1 held Ohio State to 21 points. That made me believe Marcus Freeman knew what he was going to be able to do on that side of the ball and coach defense, because Ohio State routinely puts up 30, 40, sometimes even 50 points. Ohio State last year only scored 21 or less one other time other than the game against Notre Dame, and that was against Northwestern, and that game was played in like a tsunami, hurricane, tornado, like some of the worst weather of the season. And other than that game, Notre Dame was the only team to hold Ohio State to 21 points or less. So this Notre Dame defense finished 21st, in total defense last year, allowed 329.3 yards per game. But their main struggle on the team, on the defensive side of the ball last year, was in the red zone. So that's been a point of emphasis this offseason, trying to narrow that down and button down in the red zone area and allow less touchdowns this year. The headliner of this defensive group, though, is sophomore cornerback Benjamin Morrison. He's looking like he's going to be a first-round pick the following year when he's draft eligible. He had 6 picks last year in his freshman year, and he's going to get the treat of matching up with Marvin Harrison Jr. a few weeks into the season when Ohio State and Notre Dame meet up in week 4. So their main struggles on the defensive side of the ball last year were on the ground, and in their losses to Ohio State, Marshall, and USC, they did give up 198.3 yards per game. So need to button it up on the defensive line a little bit and narrowing down that run game. And Isaiah Foskey not being there is going to hurt, but the secondary is a really strong unit. You got to hope that kind of the really strong play of the secondary kind of evens out some of the deficiencies that we could see up front from this team. But I do kind of like the linebackers as well. I am a big believer in returning experience and continuity when you look at a team, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. 8 of their projected starters this year, Notre Dame, were starters on the team last year. So only looking to replace 3 guys there. This team brings back a lot of experience, and they're back under Marcus Freeman, and defensive coordinator Al Golden's back again. So second year, we usually see a leap. That experience and the continuity in the system is a big believer. I'm a big believer in that. And then when you do continue to look at the defensive side of the ball from last year against Boston College, they put up a 44-0 shutout last year. And I know Boston College is nothing to write home about. It's not USC. It's not Michigan or Ohio State. It's not the best overall team in the country, but putting up a shutout in college football these days is pretty unheard of. And a 44-0 beatdown like that, you rarely see that in college football anymore. So having the opportunity to dominate sometimes on the defensive side of the ball, where we saw them, all right, only allowed 21 points to Ohio State, shut out Boston College, held Clemson to 14 points. I know their offense was up and down last year, but still, Clemson, that's still a big-time program, and you're shutting them down. This is a team that, with this experience and 8 starters coming back, I'm a big believer in them. And Isaiah Foskey is the main loss from this unit. He was the tone setter and leader up front, so they need someone to step up and fill that void, but I'm very optimistic about this Notre Dame team. We'll go into my schedule prediction for this team now. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, so when you look at Notre Dame's schedule for this year, I have this team going 10-2. I have them beating Navy in week 0 this week. I'm really excited to get in and break that game down. I have them beating Tennessee State, NC State, Central Michigan. I have them upsetting Ohio State. As I touched on, we saw Marcus Freeman's defense kind of had the game plan to stop Ohio State's offense last year. Now with Sam Hartman in the fold, I think they're going to be able to score at them a little bit more. So I'm picking Notre Dame to upset Ohio State this year. I do have them after that with a bit of a letdown game going to Duke. Duke is a team 9-4 last year, and they're bringing back their quarterback, head coach. It's a team that could upset some people this year, and I think that's kind of a letdown spot. I have them beating Louisville. I have them beating USC as well, so another upset. Big thing there is they get Ohio State and USC at home. I have them beating Pitt, and I do have them going to Clemson and losing that game. And then I have them beating Wake Forest and Stanford as well. So that gets us to a 10-2 record for this Notre Dame team. And then so a 10-2 overall record for them with their losses at Duke and at Clemson. They essentially should just be playing in the ACC, though. I mean, they play NC State, Duke, Louisville, Clemson, Pitt, and Wake Forest all this year. But I'm in on this Irish team. I'm in on this Notre Dame squad. Their win total Notre Dame's win total on DraftKings right now sits at 8.5. The over is -135 there. So I really like that. I think that they're going to hit definitely 9 wins. But if you want to do an alt win total for them, you can get them at +190 for over 9.5 wins, and that'll hit the 10 win mark that I have. The big thing for me with this Notre Dame team is returning experience with the continuity, a great quarterback transferred in, and the 3 toughest games on their schedule are Clemson, USC, and Ohio State. You get USC and Ohio State at home, and then Ohio State and Clemson are both going to have first-year starting quarterbacks in there. So if you're able to get 2 out of those 3 games, I think that they should be able to get easily to that 10-win mark. Ohio State at is week 4 at home, so the new quarterback is going to be still getting ushered in, whether it's Kyle McCord or Devin Brown, and that's going to be their first big game at Notre Dame. That's going to be a really tough test. And then I think they're going to be good for a slip-up, whether it's against NC State or Duke. I could see them falling. But I'm a big believer of the experience, and especially good experience with the quarterback of Sam Hartman. Veteran offensive line, a coach in his second year, and a team that returns 15 of 22 starters. So I think if you want to play it safe and take the over 8.5 and -135, go for it. But I'm going to hitch my wagon to over 8.5 and over 9.5 to these guys. You can get them over 9.5 at +190. I think that's a really good value play there. So Notre Dame, I'm hitching my wagon to them. I hope they don't wind up making me look stupid, but this is one of those things. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm expecting a big year from Notre Dame. So Notre Dame 10-2 for the 2023 season. I think that would be a really good year. And if they do find a way to 11-1 with that schedule, I wouldn't be surprised to see them find their way into the playoffs. So that'll do it for this episode of the Beef Upfront podcast. We'll be having a USC preview out this week as well, as Notre Dame and USC both play week 0. And then our big Week 0 show, we'll be breaking down all the games for Week 0. I believe there's 6 of them, and we'll be getting into some spreads, some over-unders, and we'll be getting Joey Jets back on the podcast to break it all down. So thank you, everyone, as always, for listening. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk soon.